Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. Today I am with Emily Burrice. She is the one-woman show behind Kentucky Sawdust Creations, which is kysawdustcreations.com. And she has always wanted to be creative. And in 2019, she said she picked up a jigsaw, which I'm assuming is an instrument to cut things.
Yeah.
Because I am not a woodworker. Back in 2019 and never looked back. Her bio says she is a self-taught wood artist with a true love of all things in nature. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. You have beautiful, beautiful art, and you also have it's almost the holiday season, so you make ornaments and you have things for sale on your website and orders to be put in by a certain date. So that's exciting. It must be a busy time for you.
Definitely. This is the time of year when we're definitely going crazy. Now and then also spring. Spring is very, very busy for me as well.
How did you get your start? I mean, I know you said 2019, but what sort of inspired you to go that route?
So the story is a jigsaw is a small saw. And I was the head of a nonprofit that I used to run that, of course, COVID took care of real quick. So no longer around, but we were starting a children's museum here in Kentucky in Louisville. And since we didn't really have a whole lot of funding, all of our exhibits and things were all mobile, and we would go into schools, camps, things like that. But I had to make them. And so I had this idea for an exhibit type of thing, and but I had to make it, and so bought some wood, had the design concept mapped out, got a jigsaw, and just started cutting, and then just was hooked. I realized all the fun things the jigsaw could do, and through the years have added on quite a few different toys to my workshop and really narrowed in what I want to create and what I enjoy creating.
Nice. I really love the vases that you make. They're just gorgeous. I mean, everything's gorgeous, but personally, that's what I'm drawn to are the vases.
Yeah, those are really big sellers. And those I only started about 6 months ago. And really it's the wood that makes it stand out so beautifully. Ambrosia maple. And that's what really hooks me is you can look at a log, because the wood I get are in big slabs. I'm talking 10 feet slabs that are massive. And they look terrible. I mean, they look awful. And then when you take the top layer off, like plane it is what it's called, underneath is just stunning. And I never ceases to amaze me how gorgeous what's hiding underneath. You just never know with wood. You just never know what you're going to get, but you can guarantee it's going to be beautiful.
Are there any specific types or species of wood that you prefer to work with over others?
Yes, surprisingly, I don't like working with cedar. I do, and people love it, and I do love it. It's gorgeous, it smells great, but I find it to be surprisingly a little delicate, especially if it's a thinner, like an ornament or a small letter or a small design. It tends to be a little fragile. So that's the one that I, for certain projects, tend to steer away from. Otherwise, really, all the different maples, of course, are gorgeous, and you have so many different species of them. Walnut, again, is beautiful. There's really not one that I won't try for sure.
Have you done creative things growing up? Like, what was your journey to become a woodworker?
Yeah, not really. I think I always wanted to be creative, but growing up, you always are taught about painting and drawing. And it's like, oh, I cannot draw to save my life. And so then I thought, well, I'm not an artist. I can't do that. And that's what I think is just so sad is that we're not well, and that's why I hope the schools continue to get funding for all the different aspects of what you really can do for the arts and to be creative, as it doesn't just have to be that painting or art or the drawing. But I've always wanted to. And so then when I realized what wood tools can do, it's like it opened this whole new door for me, and just immediately I was just enamored with it and shocked at what can be done. I've always loved nature, and now that I can work with nature and preserve trees that have fallen in the woods, they get a second life, and now in art.
That's lovely. That's lovely. I know a lot of people who, once they sort of find their creative flow, or they realize, they used to be a banker and now they're an artist or whatever, like they find that their mental health is in a way better state because they get to do something creative. Is that something that you found for you? Like, was your life just almost immediately better because it was creative?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my day-to-day existence is better because I'm doing what I absolutely love, and it's therapeutic. I always say that. I can just zone out. The scroll saw is the tool I use most often, and that's the one that can do the real intricate cuts and designs. And it's just soothing to me, and I just zone out and I just love it. And even now during the holiday rush, when it's like crazy, I have to almost once a week come up with a new concept and a new design and make it. I feel lost if I'm not. Now, that's not to say that every design and concept every week is wonderful and a huge seller. I have, a nice bookcase full of where things go to die. But that's not necessarily my goal. It's just to try it and see. And with each thing I create, you learn something new. And so, yes, it's definitely given me a huge outlet that just makes me super duper happy.
That's wonderful. Would you mind speaking a little bit about your process when you're doing a project, whether it's from a technical aspect or from just a mental creative process aspect?
I do a lot of wedding signs. And so if a customer comes to me, like I had somebody, I forget when, but in any event, somebody wanted a wedding sign and really wanted to use the colors of this friend's wedding. What I tend to do is start and ask them a bunch of questions about their couple. What are they thinking of? What are they looking for? I start almost like with the back of the sign. And do you want it just plain, like plain white, plain stain, whatever? Or you can make all sorts of really cool designs, like herringbone backer, do really different cool things with the back. And then we add on, do you want it to be in flowers? Do you want it, the colors to be in, butterfly aspect? And we just kind of keep building from there. And then I do a mock-up on the computer, which is terrible because I hate using the computer. It's the one downside, but again, if I could draw, that would be great. But I've been able to design it on the computer and then send it off. And then from there, we can tweak certain aspects that they think of. So it's really about talking with, when it's a custom order like that, is talking with the customer and really seeing what their vision is. One of my favorite ones I did was actually another wedding sign, and it was for a field hockey coach getting married. And to represent field hockey balls, I did, because I also use resin a lot. So I did a bunch of white and silver glittery resin balls in the form of flowers all over the sign. And so that was a pretty cool concept that turned out really nice and was fun to make. So that's kind of how, for a custom sign, I kind of do it.
Nice. And what is your approach from a creative process standpoint? What is something that you really love about it? Like you said, you can sort of zone out. Mm-hmm. Like your troubles melt away. Is that something that is your favorite part, or do you just really like just being done with the project? Do you like the start where you're first brainstorming things?
Yeah, it kind of the whole part I enjoy. I think and I kind of mentioned earlier, what is just so fascinating to me is taking this big old huge slab of wood that I pick through in my garage, and there's a lot, and they're very sawdusty and old, and some I've had for years. And taking it and cutting down whatever size I need, manipulating it into something totally different than what you could even ever would have imagined. And obviously, I've been doing this for years now, so I know the process, but sometimes it's still at the end of it astounds me that like this was a tree and like look what came out of it. And just from learning how to use different tools, and it can manipulate whatever type of wood you want into something nifty and beautiful, is just, it's just great. It's like the transformation process. I just love watching.
That's awesome. What is something that used to be challenging for you in making your products that is now much, much easier?
The tools, they scared me. Scroll saw didn't. That just for some, that was just something I had within me, never would have thought of. But you know, I have to use a table saw a lot, the miter saw, and those are intimidating at first. I mean, and you will lose a finger if you aren't careful. And it took a long time for me to get real comfortable and really just dig down deep and be like, you know what you're doing, you know how to do it, and it's necessary. But it did take longer than, I mean, hate to say it's longer than I would have liked, because it was ended up where I am now as part of the process. But it did take a long time for me to get really comfortable. And now really getting any tool I feel pretty comfortable with. Even when I add new tools, I'm pretty comfortable knowing how to use them and use them safely, and how to use them to, you know, really create some new and better and more interesting things.
Is there a tool or something that you'd want to try in the new year creatively?
There's always tools on my list. But I did get, and this might be controversial. I hesitate to call it a tool, but I did just a couple of months ago add a laser to my stash. And the reason I say it's controversial, at least for me it is, because people can use it to cut out things in wood that I do with my scroll saw.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a difference of, are you really making wood art? You're designing a lot on the computer. That's, you know, but then putting it in the laser, you know, I don't want to get into, but I kind of have a little hang up with it. But I added it because I also do wood burning on some of my items, and it just for some ornaments and really teeny tiny stuff. I am just me with fingers that aren't, you know, little fairy fingers. And so the laser really was able to help me make and enhance some of the items that now I can add to my shop. And so I've always been hesitant to get one, but I finally pulled the plug and did, and it's really made a nice difference. It's my little assistant.
Well, that's nice. And, you know, it's important to have a variety of tools to be able to just explore the full creative capacity of what you imagine.
True. And you should never say never. And I mean, I think I was on, even when if I wanted one, I couldn't afford it at the time, you know, only one tool at a time. When I was able to, you know, I said, I kind of like got off my high horse and realized, no, this is actually going to help. It's actually going to help the customers. And I stay still very, very true to my craft, which is, as I like to say, truly handmade from start to finish. But there are some projects that I've had to turn down in the past because I just didn't have the capability to do it. But now with the laser, I can.
That's excellent. We're going to get to know you a little bit as well, not just the art. And I'm wondering, what are some things you like to do in your free time when you're not making gorgeous wood art?
Read. I read. A little too much. I think my husband just had a little chat with me about, love that you read, but we also like money. I'm just too impatient to wait for books to come into the library sometimes. But yeah, I do. I just absolutely love to read or to garden. That's also my other passion, which is why this last year I've really kind of narrowed in what I want to do with my craft. And I'm merging together my gardening love with the wood love and really concentrating on that. But the flowers, I just had a chop them all down last weekend and get them ready for the winter. And it was really sad.
Do you have a book that you come back to over and over that really inspires you?
I do. And it's a very strange book. For the life of me, this is going to be funny to say. Well, actually, I have two of them. Well, To Kill a Mockingbird. I think everybody does. But I mean, I can read that. I read that every year, see everything. But, and it's so funny because I'm blanking on what the actual name is, but it's about a woman called Victoria C. Woodhull. She was actually the first woman to run for president back in the 1800s. She's kind of a swindler. She was married several times and kind of was a scam artist in like spiritualism trade and all, but her story is fascinating and she is like a badass woman. And I just love the book. It's fascinating with all well, I love history. I was a history major. And so this, along with women's studies and women empowerment, the book kind of has it all. And I mean, and it's true. So I read that one a lot.
Oh, that's excellent. Did you have to read anything for your wood art, or did you just sort of tackle it as you go?
Yeah, I kind of just started learning as I went. I mean, you've always got, luckily, I mean, this new age of technology, you got YouTube, you've got groups on Facebook and Instagram. What's really great with the wood art communities, there's a saying that says community over competition. And so you can really ask anyone any question on a concept or how to do this, and they will help right away. So I was really lucky in that sense to learn a lot. There was a lot of studying about wood species, and it certainly opened my eyes about cutting boards, let's say. You gotta be very careful where you buy your cutting boards from and who you buy them from. I mean, there's like a whole thing about, make sure it's the right type of wood so bacteria doesn't get in. Also, was the wood kiln dried or air dried, and what temperature and moisture control is it before you start cutting it and manipulating it because it'll crack. And so quality control certainly was something I didn't expect, but I learned when some of my earlier projects was like, oh, wait, that was bad wood.
Is there a process, if there is wood that's not really usable, to use it in other aspects of projects?
There definitely could be. I actually do have, if I want to use the word bad, though, I hate to say a bad log of the ambrosia maple, which is just the most beautiful wood ever. It has too many cracks and I don't think it was dried real well. So I would not use it for like one of my vases or even a cutting board and stuff. But I'm trying to cut the bad parts out, the unusable parts, because you can use them to, when I use my scroll saw, if it's like a wedding sign, a baby sign, a welcome homes, I mean, whatever you want, cut words out of it and put it on instead of, because I don't like to paint, spray painting or even hand painting. I do, but it's not when I make a sign, I prefer to use just hardwood and make a flower or whatever out of that if I can. And so I can keep some of this wood for a time like that or create a little design out of it.
That is really neat. I don't mean to be punny, but do you see yourself branching out, utilizing other types of materials like leather or vinyl, or I don't know what else you could do to either with your lasers and with your saws, to either incorporate or just make new things?
Sure. So that is a question I've always thought too to myself. What I learned early on is I tried everything, and I was kind of like all over the place, doing this, doing that. And I was like, okay, that's not great. And it's not true to what I wanted the world to perceive me and my business as. So I really have narrowed it down. And yes, with the laser, you can do all that stuff, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stay true to wood. The only thing that through the years I've learned to cut, and actually I just cut a bunch the other day, is acrylic. And I use that on my scroll saw. So I just made some piggy banks for kids with their initials. So if you have like a J, the acrylic I can cut a J out of and put it on top of the wood so you can see all your money. So, I mean, that's, just a little thing, but that would be the only other material. But right now, I think I need to just stay focused. In my mind, I would like to try it all and do it all, but that's just not great.
And speaking of doing it all, if you were to win the lottery, what project would you want to do, or what tools would you love to buy?
I would organize my workshop. I would get all the hanging things and cool things. So I'm lucky because we have a really big garage and it's super tall, so I can use all my air filtration systems and all that stuff. But my van is not in the garage, but my husband loves his car and has to be protected from the elements. So his car is right next to me. I do have I've got great room, but I would love to organize it and put all the cool, fancy things on the walls to really hang up everything, get all the fancy tool benches. A new miter saw, like a high-end miter saw, would be just fantastic. Um, but I always say, oh, wish I could build a shed in the back, but I don't think our HOA would approve it. But if they did, that's what I would do. But otherwise, I love, I'm so blessed to have this big space that I do have. And of course, being in the garage, I just can pop on down there. And then, well, maybe I should move off campus because the kids find me and interrupt me a lot.
Oh, goodness. What, if at all, was a barrier for getting to even starting the woodworking?
At first, I wasn't able to do as much because, of course, I didn't have certain tools. However, though, I will say it was neat learning, as I say, to do it like the primitive way, the old school pioneer way, by planing with a little, like a hand plane, like, really using it instead of shoving it through the nice fancy electrical planer, because I was able to really understand what it was doing. However, time-wise, I was spending a heck of a lot more time than, say, what an item I would want to spend or would charge someone for. So that was definitely a hindrance, but we worked that out. But I will say the one thing that really gets me all the time is, because we are in such a digital world, I sometimes have to stop what I'm doing and be like, oh, wait, I should be videotaping this so I can make creative content. And that's not my creative outlet. Trying to edit a video or be witty with a video or do something fun or stage a picture, it is a hindrance to me, and I'm not great at it. And unfortunately, I think for social media, your presence, it is something you got to do. And I have gotten better, and luckily my 12-year-old is a whiz kid at tech, so when he's interested in the dollar signs are enough, he'll help me. But I think that is something that can hinder my expanse in my business, my growth, because I just have to keep stopping to do this. And then if I don't, algorithm and all that stuff that I don't understand.
Yeah. I will say that social media presence, it can really take a toll. Just like it zaps your energy.
Yes. And I think probably for everyone in any creative aspect, you could write a song and be like, that's the best song in the world. And then you can hear another song be on social media and be like, oh, mine stinks. And that's not true. So it's a mind game. You have to remember to stay true to who you are and also not get too caught up in looking at what everyone's doing, certainly for techniques, and because there's some amazing things out there, but not to then put yourself down and think, no, that's what I need to be doing. Van Gogh and Renoir, I mean, luckily they didn't know each other and didn't compare notes.
Yeah, you make such a great point, because it's one thing to learn from other artists, uplift each other, get inspiration, and it's a whole different ballgame to start the comparing one. And it's so important to do your best to not compare, because everyone's got their strengths, everyone's got their talents.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's plenty of people who would like your thing versus somebody else's thing, and vice versa. And so, it's that imposter syndrome. I mean, I fall into that all the time. Sometimes I just start feeling stressed, like, oh, I stink, and oh, no one's going to buy anything from me, and my art's awful. And, it's something you got to pull yourself out of, because, what beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So just really keep that in mind on every aspect of creations.
Yeah. Sort of along those lines, who have been influential to you and or inspirational to you from an artistic standpoint?
There are quite a few woodworkers that, I mean, their art, just like how they do things, is amazing. Somebody you should check out is Wildwood Creative. She does a lot of florals, but they're all different techniques and different looks, and her stuff is just utterly amazing. And she draws it all by hand, which to me still is like a phenomenal thing. But to think of that concept, but her stuff is truly, truly amazing. I kind of caught on to her early on and just kind of watched some ideas from her, especially with like shaping. Once you cut something out, it's just flat and gross. So if you use little rotary tool, you can shape it into something pretty cool and manipulate it into different texture even. So she's been great. And she, as I said, her stuff is just amazing.
What is something that you're most proud of with your work so far?
Ooh, that's a big question. What am I most proud of? Oh, okay. Well, here I can tell you. This merged all my love of reading and my love of woodworking. Was that last year Louisville Book Festival reached out to me to make these 4-foot giant letters. It's spelled read, READ. And they're using for their festival. I mean, and I made 4-foot, built them. And this is something I don't like to build furniture or things like that. But it was the time when they reached out to me, I was like, yeah, I can totally do that. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. So I had to like really visualize and be like, come on, brain, we can do this. And so I did it. And I'm not going to lie, they are like so cute and so amazing. And last year, all the pictures with the famous artists and Pete the cat, all the pictures just thrilled me to be like, I did that. And they just had their book festival this weekend. And I saw a bunch of the pictures of the letters again. Obviously, the point was to keep them for a million years. Just to see that out in the open and something so well known and so well attended and be like, that's mine. That was huge. And that was a big thing to do because I had no idea how to do it at the start.
That's amazing.
Yes, I loved it. Loved it, loved it.
What I love about you telling that story is that you didn't let your lack of trying something stop you. You just went for it.
Yeah, I laugh about that because I am kind of sometimes, of course, we all overthink things, sometimes overthink them, but I always say that a couple of things I've ever done in my life that I didn't overthink have been huge. Like getting married, didn't overthink, just said, sure, let's do it. Having children, yeah, let's do it. Sometimes that wasn't really my choice, but you know what? They're here. Starting even the children's museum way back in the day. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I forget when my husband was out of town, I just started making signs. And he was out of town. I texted him and I said, hey, I just started a business. I'm on Facebook. I'm going to sell stuff.
You go.
Didn't do a business plan. Just was like, let's do it. And I mean, it's been profitable every year. So yay.
Yay. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You're just sort of like fearless.
Well, I think I just don't think about things sometimes. Just be like, yeah, let's do it. I think you know yourself enough that when an opportunity comes up, if there is hesitation, and obviously there are things you do need to think about, but sometimes you're like, no, yeah, I can do that. And yeah, let's go for it.
That's excellent. So we are nearing the Thanksgiving holidays. What is something that you are most thankful for?
Definitely the ability that I can do this as my job. My husband, we are totally opposites. And I was like, I was a preschool teacher. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to teach anymore. I'm just going to do this wood stuff. And he was like, all right, and then I'm just so blessed that it works with our family that I can do it. I'm here, for the kids when they need me, but I'm also doing something I absolutely love every single day. And I never take that for granted. Within that, I feel very big on karma and all that. So I really love being able to create for people who need it. Just this past summer, there was a school that was looking for decorations for the cafeteria. And I don't even know what state they were in. I just saw them on Groupons on Facebook. So I was like, oh, I can do. So I made them a bunch of signs for their cafeteria. I want to make sure I give back enough because, I'm super duper lucky. And I want to make sure that I use the art in a positive way rather than, yes, I like to make money and I need to, but I also want to make sure there's a positive side to it as well.
That's excellent. That's excellent. That's interesting you mentioned that because one of my mottos for the podcast is create, inspire, and do good.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, you're a perfect example of that. So,
well, thank you. And I do think people don't realize the art that can come out of wood, that you don't need just necessarily a painting on your wall, which of course is gorgeous, but you can have wood art on your wall. And so I love to be able to teach that to kids. And my son started his own little business as well during COVID, watching me do stuff. And so he started a business and he made a lot of money.
Inspiring the next generation already.
Yeah.
So we're going to end with 2 questions. One is a serious question. One is a fun question. Which one would you like first?
Let's do the serious one.
In your own words, what does living a creative life mean to you?
Ooh, that is serious. I think living a creative life, man, that's like an open-ended question because I just think it's taking your imagination and turning it into reality. It can be with anything, just a rock sculpture. And it doesn't necessarily have to be art. I mean, you can creatively use numbers for the good of the world and manipulate them. I think it's kind of just manipulating what we have in space and in the world, nature, and doing something completely different and adding in even different sentences, different words, kind of not going down the right path, just really, just kind of tapping into your imagination and going for it.
And now for a quirky question. What is a scent that you absolutely love?
Ooh, a scent. Gardenias, I love. I just planted some gardenia bushes and I just kept sticking my nose into them all summer. So I love gardenias, or if you get just a really beautiful smelling rose, some of those scents are just real interesting. Frankly, I'm just like sitting here thinking, oh, well, I love pine too. I love really all scents. Like, but I will say I don't like cedar. I know, I'm terrible. Poor cedar.
Well, it can't please everyone.
I know. Maybe it's because I use it too much. And so it really gets into me.
That makes sense. Excellent. Anything else you would love to tell our audience before we go?
I don't think so. I just think it's, there's so many ways to be creative and ways to make art that you never thought about. So just try it. Popsicle sticks, Twizzlers, yarn, it's just so amazing what we can use to make something fun and just really just go with your dreams. Just try it. Just try it.
I love that so much. Emily, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And listeners, please check the show notes and visit her website, especially if you're doing some holiday shopping. It is Kentucky Sawdust Creations, kysawdustcreations.com. And she does have options for being able to do custom orders before December 15th. So definitely get those in. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.